I have recently built an ITX system, and on that journey I have come across one problem: cooling. So I have an AIO that can fit this case, but the problem is the height of the pump. So that went down the drain. But people at Noctua were more than kind to provide this low-profile cooler that is specially designed for small enclosures. This is the NH-L12 Ghost S1 Edition Noctua cooler. So let's start with the unboxing, and as usual with all Noctua coolers you will get an accessories box separately from the main cooler. In the box there are mounting for all major CPU sockets, and since I am planning to install it on AM4 due to the cooler's unusual shape, you have two mounting options for the same socket. You'll see this a bit later why. There are also thermal paste here, upgraded to the NT-H2 version, case badge with Noctua logo, and also a low noise adapter so it would run on lower RPMs and thus be more quiet. To be honest, it's already super quiet. And here is the cooler itself, in the traditional Noctua colors of course. So the cooler is made for tight ITX enclosures with a total height of only 66 mm. Width is 128 mm and depth is 150 mm. So it's basically laying on top of the motherboard, and it weighs only 500 grams. You can notice that it has 4 heat pipes that are soldered to the nickel-plated base for better heat transfer. But this is not just 4 heat pipes, they are thick, they are 8 mm in diameter, and the fins on the heatsink are dense. Out of the box, the Noctua NH-L12 Ghost S1 Edition is pretty unusual, as you can see. While differing design is not entirely out of the ordinary for low-profile coolers, what immediately strikes you first is this, the fan that is mounted underneath the heatsink, and thus it's not visible once the whole cooler is installed. That is why we have these 3 holes on the heatsink, so you can securely tighten the screws to your motherboard. The installation is smooth as it can be. As I mentioned, if you have an AM4 board, you can mount it in any orientation, depending on the case and the board of course. Also depending on the RAM stick size. I am using Patriot Viper steel RAM here, and it's a bit taller than usual, still having some 1.5 mm clearance left. Base of the heatsink is nickel plated, and as I mentioned, heat pipes are soldered for better heat transfer. The area of the base is enough to keep larger CPUs like AMD Ryzen cooled. You may have problems using the TR4 platform, but again, for that experiment you will of course need a much larger cooler. One thing that is interesting is that fan does not cover the whole area of the heatsink, being only a 92mm by 92mm and 12mm tall. While it certainly falls within the small factor size, I think that a slim 120mm fan would have been a better choice here and also doable. Maybe we will see it in a future revision. But again, this might have been on purpose. As I said, the RAM clearance is also something that was considered while designing it, so if a larger fan was used, the RAM clearance would not be as good. Okay, with all that said, how does it perform? This actually heavily depends on the case used. I have a Lian Li Q58 case here, which is well ventilated, side intake through the mesh and top exhaust with 2 140mm fans, pretty much it's vented. System that I have here is a B550 ASRock Phantom gaming board, 64GB of RAM and a Ryzen 9 3900X 12-core CPU. This CPU is a total overkill for such a little system, but again I wanted to see the limits of this cooler. And that is why a 12-core CPU is an excellent choice for that. So far, when someone is building an ITX case, usually they will use Ryzen 5 in here, and that is well justified as it has a great balance of performance versus the price. But again, I myself wanted to go a little bit further. So this is the test. It's a 2-part test, as I intentionally left PBO on, which boosted the voltages up to 1.45 volts, and this is a bit too much for this cooler, as it made it reach 86 degrees while AIDA64 stress testing, so I resorted to a manual overclock using 1.27 volts, it's a constant voltage, and still making the CPU boost to a 4.4 GHz. This in return lowered temperatures to a reasonable 78 degrees while stress testing. But while gaming, and this was done with an average in 5 games, I can say that it's hovered mostly around 60 to 63 degrees Celsius. So in my opinion, take precautions if you plan to put a 12 or more cores under this heatsink. Make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into. Also, good thing to know is that the noise generated by this cooler while at full load never reached more than 39 decibels, and that is measured from some 50 centimeters from the case. What I like the most about this cooler is its versatility when installing it on the board, so you can either rotate it to or away from your RAM sticks. The second thing is the price, which is around 50 to 55 euros or US dollars depending on where it's available. Design and build quality is second to none. Noctua has proven here so many times, and noise levels are also excellent. You get a 6-year warranty as well. And in my opinion, the only negative thing would be the cooler size, but due to the RAM clearance, this was not possible. So I highly recommend this cooler for 6 or 8 core CPUs. For 12 and up, keep in mind that you will need a proper ventilated case. As always, huge thanks to people at Noctua and to all you people watching this video. Make sure to check my other videos, subscribe to the channel as it helps a lot, share and like it as well, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments.